up, Twitch? I am back. The soy boy is back after like a week or 2 weeks maybe without playing. And oh, and hello YouTube as well, because we're definitely uploading this to YouTube for posterity. Making sure my mic is working because it's been so long since we have been together, since we've had the chance to catch up, chat. A lot of things have been going on. The president almost got assassinated, which is kind of crazy. Been a long time since that's happened. But in you know, gaming, because this is a gaming channel, I keep getting paranoid that my controller's going to turn off because, you know, it happens to do that quite a bit, and I was just playing a little bit of Elden Ring, and it did it several times. I didn't even move the cord or anything. My cat is to blame for that. She chewed on that cord, and it's never been the same, and I need a new cord. Because I like to play corded controllers, as I've mentioned in the past. I've got the chat up, you know, just in case anybody wants to hang out. I'm in one of the worst parts of the game right now, which is these terrible, terrible hallways. Other than these hallways, this level's pretty good, but my god, are these infinitely exploding hallways obnoxious. And I just got a checkpoint. Thank you. But yes, no, I have a lot of thoughts right now about, you know, video games, and you know, that's mainly what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about video games, because where am I going? I think I'm going down here. But yeah, I took a break for a few weeks because there was just a lot going on. You know, nothing like huge life events or anything, but I was pretty busy with work and whatnot. And I also had some games that I wanted to check out, mainly the First Descendant, which, man, like, I'm not usually big into MMOs, right? But I had a lot of fun with the First Descendant, and I think that I'm going to die on this hallway about approximately 50 million times, by the way. And I will eventually talk about Halo, but I have to talk about First Descendant for a little bit, because I didn't look at my exact time that I was playing it for, but man, I probably played that for 100 plus hours. I don't know, which is a lot for me. Because I normally, like, games like don't really hook me anymore, where like I want to be playing them for, you know, ridiculous periods of time. But it was just a really satisfying progression system for, I think, for the majority of the game, honestly. It scratched the lizard gaming brain, right? Where it's like, it's got this great feedback loop. Hello, Ratjar. You are in the chat. I see you. I hear you. You are heard. Yes, we're back. It's been a while. I'm giving some thoughts right now, and I wish I could see this chat in portrait mode, landscape mode, where it's on the side, because my phone is balanced on the side right now, but I can't. So I have to keep it like upright, and it makes it harder to see. But yes, Ratcher, I was giving my thoughts on First Descendant. You and I played it together for a while in the beginning, for a little bit. My god, these exploding guys are obnoxious. And I'm burning alive now. But yes, I had a lot of fun with First Descendant. That's why I've been off stream for a while. That, and I've also been busy with other stuff. But I thought the progression system was really fun. And I don't normally enjoy MMOs a whole lot. But, man, like, just the gunplay was enjoyable. The multiplayer is pretty solid. It's just so easy to queue up with people, and I really like that. I mean, I have like gripes about the game, and I'm pretty much done with it at this point. Wow, this level is going to give me a lot of opportunity to talk about stuff that's not Halo, by the way, because I'm just going to probably keep dying in these parts over and over. But yeah, it was just a lot of fun. It wasn't perfect, right? Like, it was in a lot of ways it was kind of generic, but I think that it nailed a few things that are just important for a video game. Like, I think a lot of the time nowadays we get caught up in, you know, lots of things that games don't do well. But if a game is fun, then my God, this part is annoying. If a game is fun, then I consider that game a success. And I think there's a lot of fun to be had playing First Descendant. Again, like, it didn't do anything particularly well, except for I think the progression was fun and the gunplay was fun, right? It's a pretty game. It's like nice to look at as well. It's not like it has interesting story or music or writing or characters. It has none of those things. You're not playing it for those things, right? But if you're just trying to sit down, shoot some stuff, get strong, right? Like, have a satisfying progression system, it is really fun. And I think that where the game kind of falls down the most, because I'm not really judging it based on, you know, story, characters, writing. You know, I don't care about those things. Like, I don't think the game is really trying super hard to get you to care about those things. So I'm not really judging that part of the game. I think that what's worthy of criticism in that game is more so just the gameplay. And the only place where I think it really falls down is that it does get really repetitive and grindy after a while, and the fact that it's free to play means that the developers, you know, they've decided, like, oh, we'll just put these pay to win options in, right, so that you can skip the grind, right? They know what they're doing. They know that nobody wants to grind for hundreds of hours potentially to, like, unlock the coolest stuff, you know, and get as strong as possible. So they put those shortcuts in, you know, very intentionally, where it's like you can pay to win. I don't think it's oh my God, I'm trying to get in that stupid hole right there, bro. This is so bad. I'm kind of hating this level right now. But yeah, like, it's just kind of obnoxious that you really can pay to win in that game. And when I say pay to win, I mean like a significant amount of money. Like, it's a very aggressive monetization system in that game. The only reason that I think it's kind of excusable is because the game is technically free to play, right? So, like, you don't have to pay for anything. You can unlock everything that's not cosmetic. Oh my God. Oh my God, I'm getting so pissed off right now. This area sucks. This is like the worst. This is worse than the library, by the way. I don't even think that's a hot take. I think this is just worse than the library. This little section right here has to be the most frustrating part of this game. There's a couple other sections that are kind of exactly like it that I'm probably going to get stuck on, but I think this is probably the worst. When you're trying to run through and get in that freaking hole. The reason I'm not stopping, by the way, to kill stuff is, you probably saw me a few minutes ago, I tried to do that, and it's just basically useless because these mobs are infinitely respawning. There's not a whole lot of instances in the Halo games where that happens, but there are infinite flood respawners. I think it's particularly bad in Halo 1. Ratjar asked, does First Descendant have PvP? No, it doesn't, and I haven't heard any plans for the devs to release a PvP mode. I kind of hope that it does eventually, because I think it could be cool. But I also think that there's some issues like kind of inherently with an MMO having PvP, and part of that comes down to like the build variety, right? And if you are investing like all your resources in a character that's super good for PvE, it's probably not going to translate as well for PvE or PvP rather. So Ratchar says, so you're not, I'm waiting at this part right here because I really want to get a checkpoint. Ratchar says, so you're not, you're just paying to skip the PvE content, not to beat other players. That is 100% correct. And not even necessarily to skip the PvE content, because you can, it's doable, right? All of the PvE content is doable. I would say perfectly doable without paying money in that game. But if you want to min-max, right, and get as strong as possible, oh, checkpoint, thank God, dude. I was starting to lose my freaking mind at that ridiculous part of this level. Yeah, there we go. That's why I chilled out for a second, so I could get this stupid checkpoint. Yeah, I don't really even think that you need to pay to skip any content. It's more so paying to unlock characters. Let me see. Ratchar says, I saw a YouTuber say the game is pay to lose because you just pay to skip the game. That's really funny. Yeah, I think that's a good point. I really don't think that, like, I get that grinding is not fun all the time, right? And, you know, there's that argument that, oh, your time is better spent going and working and making money and then just paying to win the game or whatever. But the problem that I have with that logic is, what's the point, right? Like, what? Like, you're paying to win the game, and then the game's over, right? And I think that's, and so I think that kind of goes to your point, Ratchar, and that YouTuber. Yeah, I think people do, like, they get the wrong mindset about video games when they're like, oh yeah, I can pay to like make this, you know, easier, better, whatever. You're kind of robbing yourself of the experience of playing the game. Like, and honestly, if the game is so grindy that you find yourself needing to pay to get through it, then it's probably not a game that's worth your time, in my opinion. Yeah, Ratcher, I'm paying for the experience, not to skip the experience. I know, I completely agree. Oh, we got another checkpoint. That's beautiful. This conversation is so fruitful, and it's also helping me get through this godforsaken level. What is up, Soy Slurp? The man, the myth. Oh, did you pick that up from outside?
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. Weird thing that just happened. We had a bunch of random mail scattered out in front of our house, and it's all junk mail. And it looks like the mail carrier. Yeah, not even ours. I think the mail carrier probably just dropped a bunch of crap from the truck. But yeah, no, I completely agree with that sentiment that it's like I'm paying to play the game, not skip the game, right? And that's why generally, like, I love free-to-play games, partly because I'm really... Oh, we get another checkpoint. This is amazing. I'm kind of mixed. I have mixed opinions about free-to-play games. I really like a lot of them because they sometimes they can really nail like that addictive kind of feedback loop. And at this point in my life, that's kind of like I hate to say it, but that's kind of the best that I can get out of gaming in terms of like really solid gaming experiences. Because I just don't think there's a lot of really truly great games that come out anymore. But another checkpoint. This is unbelievable. Oh my gosh, my cat is starting to mess with me. I know, we got soy animals running around. Ratchar says, I get some people just want to jump to the end game or whatever. Well, and see, that's like, it's terrible game design, right? Because that is absolutely what the developers are wanting you to do. because they're kind of shoehorning the story in, right? What should be like the most critical element of the game, the actual story, right? The campaign. It's with these big MMOs, like they know what their audience is looking for, and I don't like that that people jump through, you know, the main story to get to the end game grind. I'm guilty of it, but I don't. I actually, what I find is that when I do that, I'm actually getting the most enjoyment out of blowing through the game as fast as I can. And then when I actually get to the end game grind, I actually fall off pretty quickly, right? And because at that point you've already completed the whole game, right? With First Descendant, I think that the end game grind kind of comes down to the intercept battles, which are, for those of you who have not played the game, the intercept battles are like these big, you know, kind of cinematic boss fights. They're not, I don't think they're particularly good, but I do think that there's some fun to be had with them, right? Because they're like, and when I say good, I'm talking about like quality boss design, because like, let's be real, they are basically giant bullet sponges that you shoot at for 10 minutes, and there's literally a 10-minute timer. So if you go over that, then you lose automatically, which is kind of funny. But they're literally 10-minute bullet sponge bosses, right? And you that grunt just stuck his own elite, by the way. But yeah, and I think that some of them are actually really cool and fun. They have some interesting gimmicks to them, because they are also gimmick fights, right? Which is kind of hilarious. Like it's almost like the devs took like everything that people hate about bosses and they kind of shoved them into those intercept battles. But what's funny is that people actually consider those kind of like the highlight of the game. Which is really funny. I don't know. I don't really know how the devs got away with it, because the game is doing super well in terms of player, like having a really big player base right now. But I'm like, there's so many. I have so many thoughts about this game. I'm like getting lost in my thoughts. But yeah, that's kind of the end game, right? Is getting through these intercept battles. And I will admit I had some fun with them, and I also got extremely pissed at a few of them towards the end, because like with most of the intercept battles, they give you the option to fight them either alone or with a group of 4, right? And so I was kind of going through the game like picking which ones I wanted to do alone versus which ones I wanted some help with. And in some cases, it's actually easier to do some of them by yourself, because the game is so new that a lot of players are just completely incompetent. And I mean like completely incompetent, right? Which is funny for me to say that, because normally I'm the one that's completely incompetent with MMOs like that. So it's really bad when you're like trying to queue up with these people and you're like kind of trying to get carried, right? Because I'm like, that's like how I play a lot of games, is like if I can get through it with somebody carrying me, it's like, yeah, why not? I can still have fun with that, and I think it's kind of entertaining. But this game is so new. I don't normally play games when they first come out because I don't want to spend money, but since it was a free-to-play game, I kind of shot my shot with it, right? And so I ended up being like better than the majority of people that I was queuing up with. So it actually became a thing where I was just learning how to do the boss on my own, and that was just more time efficient and just an easier way to get through it, right? I'm really hoping I get a checkpoint right about here, because I'm about to run into a cutscene. I think you get a checkpoint at the cutscene. But after that, it turns into a real cluster of flood. So If I could get a checkpoint like right about here, I think that might be nice. I don't know. Maybe I should just go for it. Yeah, I don't think there's anything in here. And I'll just talk through this cutscene because I don't think you can hear the cutscene anyway. But yeah, so I ended up doing a lot of the intercept battles on my own. And the thing about when you get to the very end game, right, the last couple of intercept battles that are like a huge pain in the ass. And they are a huge pain in the ass. Anybody who's played the game that far will know what I'm talking about. They have gimmicks that are essentially DPS checks that force you, and I mean they like basically force you to go back and grind out some better upgrades, right? To upgrade all your stuff so that you can do more damage, and you can you have to farm these modules to equip to your guns to make them stronger, which I actually think is a fantastic mechanic. I had a lot of fun grinding those out and getting stronger. But then the intercept battle, and that was kind of cool to see, like you're grinding to get stronger, and then it's very rewarding to find that the boss is then a lot easier or more manageable, or even just possible, right? It's basically like these end game intercept bosses are totally a DPS check, where if you have not farmed enough and you're not strong enough, I'm pretty sure they are like literally impossible to do enough damage to beat them. So, but the problem with these last, and that by itself, I don't think is a huge problem. I think it's cool that you can kind of go back, grind out better stuff, right? Which I found fun, because I thought it was fun progression. And then you can go back and kill the boss. I think that's actually a cool gameplay loop. But the issue with the last couple of intercept bosses is that these gimmicks force you to fight them in a team. There's not even an option to fight them alone. And so the problem with that is that people online are horrible. They're like completely incompetent. And I don't know if I'm sure there's a way to matchmake with your friends, but I don't have anybody that I know that even plays that game that would be willing to invest the time. Like Ratjar, maybe like you could have got to that point, but it would be a big ask. It would have been a big ask because I was binging that game, and I think I was actually pretty much ahead of almost the entire community. So, which is not normal for me. Normally I start playing games like way after they come out when they get a lot cheaper. But because this was a free-to-play game and it was actually kind of my kind of game that I could have fun with, I ended up kind of blowing past the majority of the player base. So you get to these last couple of intercept battles and you're forced to fight them with people. And so I was queuing up with randos. Oh, thank God I got that checkpoint. Yeah, I was queuing up with randos who just could not play the game. It was terrible. And so I ended up having to go back and grind out even more so that I could carry my randos. I'm really annoyed that drop just killed me, by the way. I think that's kind of bull. That wasn't a very long drop. But I'm basically at the end of this mission, so it's not a huge deal. So yeah, it was terrible. Like the last, 20 plus hours of that game were absolutely awful because those intercept battles were, these bullet spongy gimmicky bosses, which wouldn't be a huge problem on its own, but I had to queue up with randos that were terrible. So I just ended up grinding until I got ridiculously strong, and I was basically able to help, the one other competent member of my team carry the other two randos that were terrible. That's kind of just how I found that last. It left a bad taste in my mouth. The last, many hours of the game were awful, which was unfortunate because I overall I really, really enjoyed the first Descendant. But there were just a few things that really held it back like that. And the thing about getting to beating the last couple intercept battles is that there's really nothing else to do after that in terms of like gameplay, right? You can go if you want to, if you're like really into the game, you can spend hundreds of hours, and I do mean hundreds of hours, grinding for these drops, right? These super rare drops, these like 3% drops, right? That will allow you to craft the ultimate characters, right? Or whatever. But at that point, it's like, even if I've unlocked those characters and I've spent hundreds of hours grinding that, like, what am I gonna do with those characters? Because there's no other content in the game to clear, right? I've cleared the end game content. So in my mind, it's like, I don't really see a point in playing anymore, right? Which is fine. I'm not like knocking the game for that, because I still got probably 100+ hours of what I thought was really, for the most part, really enjoyable progression and gameplay. But I think I'm kind of at the point where I feel like I've beaten the game, quote unquote. Not that you can technically beat an endless grindy MMO, right? But I have kind of an old school brain where gamer brain, right? Where I kind of eventually just decide, and maybe other people are like this too, but I just get to the point where I decide that I've completed it enough, right? That I don't really see a point in playing anymore, and I can kind of feel good about what I've accomplished, and I can just feel fine with that, and I can move on, you know? I think a lot of people, when they get really, really invested in a game like that, it's kind of like what's called the sunk cost fallacy, which is a psych term that I love, and I use that all the time. But it's essentially this fallacy, this logical fallacy, that I've invested so much into this game that I have to keep going with it until I've absolutely 100%ed it or whatever, right? And then even after that, some diehards are probably going to keep playing it, even if the content that the developers are releasing can't keep up with the demand, right? Because I'm sure they'll continue releasing content. I love this cutscene, by the way. I wish that people could hear the cutscenes, but I had to turn the game volume down so that you could hear my janky mic. But this cutscene is so simple and so perfect, and the music is unbelievable. I don't think that they make games like this anymore. I absolutely love the Halo trilogy. And I say Halo trilogy because I'm talking about the original trilogy. I don't really care as much about the games that came after. ODST and Reach were great, but everything else, kind of sucks. So yeah, those are my thoughts about the first Descendant. I played Ajax. I started as Ajax because he looked cool, and he's a tank, and I love playing tanks in games like that. And I would recommend anybody that plays that game. Ajax is absolutely fantastic. He is fantastic. He's an excellent character. He's super tanky. Like, not even... I mean, honestly, he makes a lot of the game kind of a joke, which I don't have a problem with, right? I think that when you're playing games that kind of do you dirty, then you need to use all your tools at your disposal to, to fight back, right? And I kind of actually enjoy that about games like this, that it gives you that option, that Ajax character, right, that can just absolutely blow through a lot of those fights without needing to worry about taking damage. Ratjar is still new and free. Maybe they were planning on adding more. I absolutely think that they're gonna keep adding content to that game. I really hope they do, because I think the game, and I'm talking about First Descendant again, I think the game is really fun. Like, I actually do. It's a grindy MMO, right? Like, you have to accept it for what it is. If you're not interested in grindy MMOs, and in this case it's a looter shooter, it's kind of like Destiny, then this game's not for you, right? But I do hope that, I think it's got enough of a player base, 100% it has enough players to keep it going. And so I do hope they continue to support it and improve it, and they've and add content, right? And the developers actually already have addressed some of the player feedback, which is awesome. Specifically with some of their kind of mini boss design, there were these like terrible design decisions they made where you have to destroy these orbs that float around the mini bosses, and you can't even do damage to the mini boss before you destroy the orbs. So they made and so anyway, there were some iterations of that basic idea that were really terrible, like destroying the orbs in like a specific order, right? Or else they all come back, and it was just it was terrible. Nobody liked it, and people started complaining. So they actually already have started fixing some stuff like that, adding a little bit of diversity apparently. So I've heard, to the mini bosses, which is awesome. Yeah, I really hope they continue to support the game and add more content, because it's totally worth it, right? The game has enough potential and value and fun, right? Potential for fun, that I think they should keep going with it, and it's totally profitable. So, but yeah, if you play it, I recommend your starting character is Ajax 100%. He is going to make the experience so much more doable. Like, it's not even... I mean, especially if you're kind of new to games like this and you suck like I do, Ajax just makes it so much more bearable. I tried playing with Bunny after I unlocked Bunny, right? Because I think that's part of just the story. I don't know. And Bunny's awesome for grinding, because she does a lot of damage in like a circle around her, so she can be really, really good for grinding. But actually trying to clear all the content in the game, I think, is just so much easier as Ajax, because all the other characters feel like they're made out of tissue paper compared to Ajax. So I don't think I have any more pressing thoughts about the first Descendant. Maybe if they add more content, I'll go back and play it again. But especially if I get rid of Game Pass, because I gotta be real, Xbox that's another thing I wanted to address. Xbox increased the price of Game Pass recently. I think it's now like Ultimate is like $20 a month, and with games that are free to play that come out, like First Descendant, and I'm sure I'm gonna play Blue Protocol when it comes out, which is like an anime MMO. And with like other games that I play, Eternal Card Game, it's a free, and Overwatch, right? There's a lot of free-to-play games that I really enjoy, and I end up not really getting as much value out of my Game Pass subscription because of that. So I'm kind of considering dropping Game Pass. So if they end up adding more content to like First Descendant, I'm probably, especially if I don't have Game Pass at that point, I'm probably gonna play it. Because it's just fun. It's just good fun. But the problem with dropping Game Pass is that there's certain games that I do go back to every now and then that I realize that I don't own, right? This game being one of them. Master Chief Collection. Like, I've never had the desire to drop... Oh my god, I just got stuck. I've never had the desire to drop the $70 or whatever. You could probably get it pretty cheap at this point. But Xbox or Microsoft, they've been kind of sneaky with they've kind of got me by the balls in some ways, because I did not want to pay for the new Xbox, right? The Series X. So I ended up going with the Series S, which might, like, hindsight, like, I got a good deal. I think it was like $250 or something, because I waited a long time to buy it. But looking back, I'm like, man, I realized that might have been a mistake, because it does not have a disk drive. So Game Pass then becomes even more kind of, sneakily important, right? Because even if I want to buy games used, I really can't play them unless it's playable on my old Xbox One, which my Xbox One at this point just does not perform as well, which is a crying shame. It really is, because it's just old. So maybe at some point I'll get a Series X. I don't know if it goes on sale or there's like a really good deal or something. Because I don't want to have to depend on Game Pass for the rest of my life and not actually own any of my games, right? Because at some point it's like, unless you're using Game Pass, you know, to a certain extent, you're just not getting the value, right? It's $20 a month. Like, that's potentially a couple of new games every year. And honestly, like, in this economy, it's more than a couple new games a year, because most of the new games that people actually care about are starting to become indie games that are not $60, $70, or $70 now. Yeah, for a new AAA game. So yeah, like, most of the games that I end up actually caring about these days are indie games, which is crazy. Indie, or just, you know, like AA, I guess, or whatever they're calling it. Games that aren't AAA, right? A lot of those games being like kind of knockoffs of other games that I really like Pokemon knockoffs or like Souls-likes or whatever. But yeah, a lot of those games, like, they're not $70 on release, and even then I wouldn't buy them on release. I wait till they get cheap, right? And most games, they get to the point where it's like, okay, you wait a couple of years, which I'm patient, right? I can wait a couple of years. They get to the point where they're like $20. And at that point, the developers have fixed all the problems, right? Because every game's screwed up on release nowadays. So it's like, yeah, you can play games day one, but they're going to be janky. Even First Descendant was absolutely terrible on release because of the servers, man. Like, and I think it was even worse than most, because most games are jacked up when they first come out for a lot of different reasons, like server problems being one of the biggest issues, because everybody's trying to play the game all at once and the developers don't know how to manage their servers. There's a lot of problems they can't anticipate necessarily. But I think First Descendant was particularly bad. I mean, it had periods, like long periods during those first several days where you just couldn't play the game. Like, you could not. The servers were totally inoperable, which was a shame. So anyway, yeah, getting back to my point about Game Pass, it's like, even when you do want to play these big AAA games on release, they're normally in their worst state on release, right? With just kind of how the culture of gaming has gone. It's nice that developers can patch their games after release, but the problem is that nobody has an issue releasing games that are completely broken or unplayable at this point, right? They're trying to push them out the door as early as possible to make money. And so they just kind of count on their players being okay with them fixing the game and patching and whatnot after the fact, right? So I actually, being like kind of a cheap mofo and waiting until games get, you know, a few years or whatever till they become like $20 and they're releasing like the full DLC versions of the games, like the Ultimate Editions, and then those become really cheap after, if you wait long enough. Like, you can get everything the game has to offer for $20 at some point, and it's at that point it's all fixed, right? It's all patched. Like, you're playing the best version of the game. So I just don't think that Game Pass makes as much sense. Like, I'm spending $20 a month when I don't even play most of the games. Like, let's be real, most of the games on Game Pass suck. So you're paying $20 a month, the majority of the service you're not even using, and you're playing the worst versions of the games because they're dropping day one on Game Pass. They're like at their worst state. And you don't own the games, right? If you ever want to go back and play the game again, well, you better have a Game Pass subscription. I'm ranting about this because I've been off stream for a while and I have a lot of thoughts. Ratchar says Microsoft is going to come after you for all this bad mouthing Game Pass. Yeah, I know. If I ever get any kind of serious following, which would be amazing, I'm not going to be getting any endorsements from Microsoft, that's for sure. Because I think Game Pass is just like, when Game Pass first came out, it was an awesome deal. Like, and it still is to some degree a really good deal, but I think that Microsoft is just getting a little too greedy with it. Where most of these games are not worth playing on Game Pass. They just aren't. Like, most of them, like, if you're like an avid gamer, right, and you can appreciate games of every genre, right, and you're willing to compromise on quality in a lot of cases, like if you just like games and you want like as many games as possible to play. I don't know anybody like that. I feel like most people have some kind of quality bar, right? And most people are not playing every genre of game, right? So it's not like with Netflix or whatever where most people, I mean, I don't know. I think most moviegoers are okay with whatever genre of movie as long as it's good, right? I don't think that that's as true with the gaming community. I think most people have their genres that they kind of go to, right? That they want to play. And then they kind of just say F it to everything else. So I just don't think Game Pass makes a ton of sense, like financially, when it's like most of the games, like even if they're good, they're not my type of game that I normally enjoy. So yeah, I don't know. And I think that Microsoft is going to continue getting flack for some of their decisions like that, where like they're increasing the price and they're not, in my opinion, they're not giving you a better service for that price. I could be wrong. Like, I don't know. Like every now and then Microsoft really does drop a straight up banger on Game Pass. Remnant 2 being one of them. That was awesome. Like that game, that was a great Souls-like that I played the crap out of it. Like there's some Game Pass games that I've played the crap out of, but I would say that it's probably like not even 5% of the games on Game Pass I've actually played and that I actually care to play, you know? I don't know. As I get older and I don't know, maybe I'll get a different sort of mentality and I'll realize like, oh, I should be just, you know, I might be looking at the service the wrong way. I should probably just be trying out like every game on Game Pass and kind of expanding my perspective on this. But for where I'm at in my life right now, I'm normally looking for a very specific type of experience when I'm thinking of a new game that I want to play. Because life is short, right? And I don't have all the time in the world. I'm not a teenager anymore. And I don't have all the time in the world to play games, right? So when I'm choosing my next game to play, it's like a very intentional choice. I think that a lot of people, like older gamers, will resonate with that. Because like when you have a freaking job, dude, you can't, you have like, I don't know, maybe an hour a day to play games in the evening, because you get like, you get home from work, you feel like crap. most of the time I get home from work and I don't even have like the energy to play games. And I'm old. It actually takes me energy to play games these days. It's a fun activity, but it's not like flipping on a TV show where I just completely veg out for an hour, a couple hours, right? And it's something I actually have time or energy to do after work, right? Like games can get a little exhausting. And I don't think that enough people are talking about that, like from more of a big picture kind of philosophical standpoint, like life is not long, right? And you only have so much free time. Do you really want to be spending it playing games that you don't actually care about or even necessarily like? I mean, because that's what Game Pass is kind of offering. It's offering hundreds of games, but most of them suck, dude. And I don't think that that's a hot take. I think that most games on Game Pass suck and are not worth your time, right? Which is, I don't know, maybe that's kind of rich coming from me after I've dumped, like, I don't know, 100+ hours into First Descendant. But I had fun with it. I enjoyed it. And it's a free-to-play game, right? And there's a lot of free-to-play games that I think are probably more worth my time than your typical, I don't know, day one release on Game Pass, right? That's broken and is not fun. So I'm talking so much shit about Game Pass right now. But that's just kind of how I feel about it, man. Game Pass, it's losing its kind of X factor for me. It's not giving me as much of a reason to shell out $20 a month. Like, I don't think that $20 a month is insignificant either. I mean, I make like decent money, right? And I'm like, yeah, $20 a month. Like, when you're adding up the cost, sure, like, okay, sure, $20 a month. It's not that big a deal, right? It's not that much money. But when you're considering, oh yeah, I also want to have a Netflix subscription and a freaking Hulu subscription, right? And a Paramount Plus. Like, I want to keep up with all of the different shows that I like, and they're on all these different streaming services. Game Pass is just adding this cost on there. Like, you're already spending, $100+ a month on these other streaming services. At what point do you just have to say, okay, this is like not this is not financially responsible anymore for me to be adding another streaming service, right? It's too much. Like, it's just too much. And part of it, I think I'm kind of, wow. Oh my God, this is terrible. I did not, what is happening? I'm getting hacked. That terminal, I think I pressed the button and I activated that terminal. Microsoft is not happy with me right now. They're hacking into my stuff. I'm just gonna chill here and see if these Sentinels and Flood solve their own problems. I got a checkpoint, thank God. These flood sections, man. I love this game, but these flood sections can be a real slog. So, and I like this level. I actually really like this level. But getting back to, oh my God, there it is, dude. Oh, that was clutch. That was so clutch. I did not know if that overshield was here on this level or if I was thinking of the first level of the game, because they're identical, basically. I'm out of ammo with everything. My God. These Flood are not dropping the guns that I need. So, yeah, where was I? I was talking about Game Pass. It's just getting too expensive, man. Like, when you gotta buy food and you gotta pay the bills, it's like the working man is not going to just suffer these price increases eternally, for what is essentially the same service. Like, there's nothing new that they're adding for this price increase. It's a pretty expensive, Ratjar. It's a pretty expensive subscription compared to other entertainment options. That's exactly it, right? And I think there's a combination of factors that are making it a less appealing subscription service for me, some of which I've already talked about. Gaming is exhausting, okay? For older people like me, right? For these kiddos out here with infinite energy who can, they've got all the time in the world, right? I'm bad-mouthing kids right now because school's not that hard, okay? School's chill. God, I wish I could go back to school. Working is just infinitely harder. So like, yeah, if you're not a kid, right, then gaming is exhausting. Your time actually means something because you're working for like freaking 8 hours a day. It's ridiculous. And then you come home, you're tired. So what are you going to do with that couple hours that you have when you get home from work before you have to go to bed and then wake up for work the next day, right? Your time is precious. What are you going to do with it? Am I going to play the Llama Simulator 2024? No, I'm not playing Goat Simulator. I don't care if it's a meme game and it's fun for a couple hours and it's on Game Pass. I'm not playing it. Like, I'm not playing that. It's gonna be a miracle if I have energy to play any game after I get home from work. And I don't think that Game Pass is necessarily worth it just to play games on the weekends, because because that's the other thing. Like, it's the weekend. Do you really want to spend it grinding away on shitty games? Like, you don't, okay? You just don't. You want to go outside, go to the pool, play some, you want to, go to a movie theater. Like, you want to do things with your weekend that you can't do with your weekdays. So, again, that's making Game Pass even less appealing. Like, time is precious, okay? And you know what? Your money is precious, right? So, Game Pass just becomes not practical anymore. It's like, dude, it's not an L take. Soy Slurp says this is an L take. I do not think this is an L take. I think that people are going to start thinking about this a lot more, because as you get older, you realize that your time is worth something, and life doesn't last forever. Yes, Ratjar, you got it. Ratjar says you got to play a lot of those games to get your money's worth. You absolutely do. And yes, I'm bashing Goat Simulator. Yes, going outside is not an L take. Going outside is not an L take. And here's another thing. I have I'm adding on to the list of reasons I'm not gonna pay for Game Pass anymore. I'm putting my foot down. The other thing is, like, I have. I have other hobbies, okay? Like, I started, this is gonna make me sound like a man-child. I have started collecting Pokemon cards again. And I've started collecting Yu-Gi-Oh cards again, right? And you know what that takes? It takes money, right? And it takes time, and it's another enjoyable thing that I could be. You know how many freaking Pokemon cards I can get? Soy Slurp is giving me a face right now. You know how many Pokemon cards I can... You know how many Pokemon cards I can get for $20 a month? Ratjar says Pokemon cards equal W. Pokemon cards absolutely are a W, by the way. That is a good expenditure of your money. Because and you know what? And I'm gonna defend this take. I'm gonna defend this take too. Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and just cards, right? Collectibles, they are a better use of your money in a lot of ways than Game Pass is. Because, oh man, this is getting really controversial. I'm not giving financial advice, okay? But you're gonna... Yes, Soy Slurp. I'm about to say it's more... Okay, it's more of an investment. It actually is more of an investment. Some of these cards, like, actually do go up in value. I mean, it's a speculative investment, but you also have to consider that it's not just an investment. It's an enjoyable hobby, right? Whereas Game Pass is, for the most part, it's a collection of crappy games with a couple of really good ones, right? It gets some really good ones. I'm going to give it that, right? But I would say it's like maybe 5% of the Game Pass library is actually good. Ratjar says, you lost me when you talked about going outside, but talking about Pokemon cards brought me back. I'm so happy about that, Ratjar. Those are two things that you can do with your time that aren't playing video games, by the way. You're welcome for the life advice. Follow the channel for more, advice on how to be happy, and buy my freaking masterclass and my t-shirts when I come out with all that on Patreon, when I start taking streaming more seriously. I will say, if I do get serious about streaming, Game Pass will absolutely be worth it. Yes, indeed, it will be worth it. But most people are not streaming, right? Most people are getting home from their job that they hate, and they need to find the best bang for buck use of their money and their time, okay? That's just how the world is. Capitalism, it makes us work. It makes us spend our time to get money. We use that money to enjoy what we have left of our lives, okay? And $20 a month, that's $120 a year. Doesn't sound like much, but when you're also considering I have all this other crap that I want to buy to enjoy myself, and I also have to buy food and pay for my housing and whatnot, right? It adds up, okay? It absolutely adds up. Yes, you could absolutely make an argument that Game Pass is worth it for the money. If you're being completely objective, you are getting a ton of value, technically, out of Game Pass. But most of that value, I would argue, for the everyday Joe, right, who's going to their job and they don't get to sit around like a teenager all the time and play video games, Game Pass is not worth it. I don't think that it's worth it for most people. So that's my 2 cents. When I was going to school, I'm gonna drop some knowledge bombs right now. And I was learning about statistics, and maybe specifically statistics in the social sciences. There is what's called external and internal validity when you're conducting an experiment or a study, right? And I'm going to botch this so badly, but essentially experiments give you internal validity because, oh my God, I'm like trying to use my brain right now and it's like not working. But they give you internal validity because they're showing you in a perfectly controlled situation what the outcome of your research is going to be, right? You're controlling all the factors, right? But the problem with experiments is that most of the time when you're actually talking about how those findings apply to real life, you're not going to have perfectly controlled variables, right? So those experiments are lacking what we call in the business external validity. And that's external validity is what you get when you conduct studies that are like, oh my God, I'm so pissed I didn't grab a rocket launcher. How did I mess this up? I'm ranting about Game Pass, that's why. I'm so frustrated. I wonder if this pistol will be enough or if I need an explosive. I don't remember how this works. So yeah, you've got internal validity with experiments that's showing you what these results are going to look like in this perfectly controlled situation, but they lack external validity, which is where you're like, and when you want external, or I think it's also referred to as natural validity, man, I hope somebody who knows about statistics comes in and like checks me on all this, but the external validity is what you're getting in the natural environment. So like if you think about like survey data of like everyday people out living their lives, or whatever, right? Those kind of more less controlled sort of studies, that's external or natural validity. I think with Game Pass, when you're making the objective argument that it's worth the money, you're referring to that internal validity. Yes, for the content that you're getting for the value that you're technically getting, it is worth it. You're getting so much exposure to the gaming industry, right? You've got tons of games. So yes, objectively it's worth it. But if you're looking for the natural or the external validity or the subjective value, which is, I think, more important because it's more practical. It's like, what are you actually going to be using of this service that you're paying $20 a month for? Most people are not actually getting their full value or even close to the full value of Game Pass, right? Because you're not playing all those games. You do not want to play all those games. Most of them suck, right? Most games suck, right? It's just like with any industry. The small percentage of what's actually good is just that, right? There's maybe a few games that come out every year that I can think of that I actually care about playing, right? I really hope I get a checkpoint here. Ratjar says, money can be used to buy goods and services. You are absolutely right. Ratjar, I checked you're right about everything you're saying. Trust me, bro. Thank you, Ratjar. Thank you. I studied science, okay? So I have an opinion, right? And I think that my opinion is better informed than a lot of. I'm gonna sound like such a dick, but I think my opinions are generally better informed than your average Joe, right? Because I've studied these things. I've spent a lot of money to go to school and study statistics, so I remember, and there's a few things that I remember about it too. So mark my words. Game Pass is not always going to be worth it. I think more people are going to start talking about this as we realize that life is short and you don't want to spend it playing games you don't like. So there you go. That's my thoughts on Game Pass. I also, Raptor, you're going to love this. I have so much to talk about. I'm going to make this my last stream. I'm just going to finish Halo in this video, and then maybe I'll use my last month of Game Pass to play through the rest of the Halo games on stream and continue bashing Game Pass. That would be really funny and ironic. But yes, I have even more hot takes, believe it or not. Shadow of the Erd Tree, my guy. I played Shadow of the Erd Tree. Okay, I'm going to give a little bit of background, a little context to this. I am not a huge fan of Elden Ring, and I know that this is going to be a big hit to my channel. I'm taking a big risk with this hot take. This is an L take. I'm accepting that this is an L take, okay? But not really. I think Elden Ring kind of sucks. And when I say it kind of sucks, I'm talking about, again, compared to most games. Yes, Elden Ring is a masterpiece, whatever, right? Most games suck. So I'm contextualizing it in that frame, right? Most games are not good. So now that being said, I still don't think that Elden Ring is that great. And I'm gonna tell you why. Okay, there's several reasons that I don't think Elden Ring is that great. And some of them I've already kind of talked about more broadly, but and this is gonna get a little dicey because I really have a lot of thoughts about Elden Ring. And some of this, I'm gonna admit, is subjective, okay? Not everybody's gonna agree with me, and that's fine, right? On why I don't like Elden Ring, and why I think that it's generally underwhelming. I think that's my most, my most, I don't know, salient point about Elden Ring. I think it's underwhelming. I'm gonna give a little context. I've been a longtime Souls fan, and I have enjoyed almost every Souls game that has come out, right? I've played them all except for Demon Souls and Sekiro. I think those are the only ones I haven't played. at this point. And Soy Slurp actually has Sekiro, so I'll probably play that at some point. Demon Souls, I don't know. I'm probably never going to buy a PlayStation, but and my friends that I've borrowed their PlayStation to play Bloodborne, they don't have a PS5, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm ever going to play Demon Souls, and I don't want to play the original. I want to play the remaster, because it just looks a lot better than the original Demon Souls. So there you go. That's the context for my Souls experience. I love the Souls games. Dark Souls 3, one of my absolute favorite games of all time. Dark Souls 1 as well, and I already played that on stream. Ratchar says, this man plays hundreds of hours of First Descendant, then bashes Elden Ring on stream. Shaking my head. I know. I am a hypocrite, okay? My arguments are not always consistent, and I have hot takes, okay? But here's the thing about First Descendant. I'm going to defend my take on First Descendant, because I really do think that there's a lot of fun to be had with First Descendant, and I think that's true to some extent with Elden Ring as well. But First Descendant, you're kind of taking it, like, nobody's saying it's a masterpiece, right? That's one thing that I think we have to take into account here. People are almost universally in agreement that Elden Ring is a masterpiece, and I disagree with it. I'm not saying Elden Ring is a bad game, okay? I would never say Elden Ring is a bad game. I feel like I get defensive about this opinion, because I feel like the entire world is against me when I talk about Elden Ring. And and I feel like I have to give like 20 disclaimers, right? Because I don't think Elden Ring is a bad game. I do think that Elden Ring is a boring game. I'm actually going to defend that. I'm coming out and I'm saying it. I think Elden Ring is a boring game. I'm not going to say these opinions without evidence. I'm going to come back and you know, give a little bit of evidence, hopefully, for a lot of these thoughts. $200? You can get a bullpup for $200. Another hobby I'm thinking about getting into, or I don't know if it's hobby as much as just like doomsday prepping or whatever. I'm thinking about buying guns, and we were looking into the bullpup. And I showed Soy Slurp. We were looking into the bullpup because you can get one for $300. And don't judge me for looking into guns, by the way. But I'm talking to my audience more broadly. But yes, the bullpup is a semi-automatic shotgun, and it looks awesome. And I've watched some videos of people shooting it, and it looks like a ton of fun. So I don't know. Side note, but Soy Slurp just found one for $200, which is kind of dope. So anyway, getting back to my thoughts about Elden Ring. I think it's a boring game. I don't think it's a bad game necessarily, but I do think it's a boring game. If you want to get into the weeds, if you want to get into the semantics with me about it and say, okay, well, boring is implying that it's a bad game, I don't necessarily agree with that, okay? I think that there's maybe some more subjectivity to the word boring, right? What some people find boring, other people are it's going to be like the best experience of their entire life. Case in point, the new Dune movie, okay? Dune 2, I'm getting on so many tangents. Dune 2, I'm streaming. Yes, hello soy wife, but I'm almost done. Dune 2 is what I think is objectively one of the greatest movies ever. I love that movie. And I think the first movie's also in the same tier of movies. I think the second one's better, but I think they're both amazing. A lot of people think that those movies are boring. Okay? Emphasis on the word boring. I don't think that, and I can understand that, why they would think those movies are boring. Because they're long, right? They're kind of slow in some places, right? So I can understand that argument that people would say Dune is boring. I don't think that you can make the argument that the Dune movies are bad. I think that's objectively, yes, I'm saying objectively, and I'm talking about art. I think that's objectively wrong. I think you can maybe say they're boring, but they're not bad. And I would say the same thing can be said of Elden Ring. You probably can't objectively say Elden Ring is a bad game, okay? But I do think that you can make a good argument that it's boring. Oh my God! What? I can't believe I'm all the way back here. That's complete bull. I'm actually annoyed about that. But this will give me more time to break down my thoughts. Okay, let's see what Ratjar says. Ratjar says, just honestly an incredible stream. Spend time playing great games. Life is short. Here's why I played First Ascendant and Elden Ring sucks. I know. You might find some of my takes to be quite hot, fresh off the presses, right? Like this is like buns coming out of the oven, hot. Okay, I've got some hot takes, right? But again, I'm contextualizing my opinion, so they're not wrong. The First Ascendant, you take it for what it is, man. It's an addicting grind fest, okay? It's not a great game. Nobody's arguing it's a great game. At least I hope they're not. Because it's a grindy MMO, and there's fun to be had in that, right? Not for everybody. Like, not everybody's going to enjoy it. And I do think the grind gets boring once you've cleared all the content. I don't think there's any point in playing after that. But I probably had more fun if I'm looking back on it. This is going to sound awful. I probably had more fun playing First Descendant than I did Elden Ring, okay? And again, longtime Souls fan, I love the Dark Souls games. I absolutely love the Dark Souls games. Particularly Dark Souls 3 and the first half of Dark Souls 1. I think they're absolute masterpieces. But where I think they went wrong with Elden Ring, I'm going to finally start talking about why I don't think that Elden Ring is all that, right? Where I think they went wrong with it is, this is so terrible. I should be talking about Halo because I'm playing Halo and I love these games. But I'm just, my kind of brain juices get flowing, and I haven't been on stream for a long time. I have so many thoughts. Where I think they went wrong with Elden Ring is that they took the Dark Souls formula and ultimately they diluted it, okay? And I don't think I'm wrong about this. A lot of people are going to say, you know, they're saying Elden Ring is the best Souls game, right? It's a richer, like people will say it's a richer experience. It's deeper. There's a lot more to it. It goes on forever, right? It's huge. And my argument essentially boils down to, I think that Elden Ring is quantity over quality. There. I said it. That's the crux of my argument. I think it's quantity over quality. And now I know that I'm a huge hypocrite in that I played the crap out of First Descendant. I enjoyed it. I don't have shame in that. But and First Descendant is 100% the definition of quantity over quality. It's a grindy MMO, okay? But the problem I have with Elden Ring is that they're taking what I love, the beloved Souls formula, right? And they're diluting it into this open world format, which I originally thought was going to be awesome, okay? I was really, really excited for Elden Ring. And I was horribly let down because the world, I'm going to break down the weaknesses in my mind and the strengths of Elden Ring. The world of Elden Ring is boring. It's huge, right? It's like one of the biggest games ever, but it's boring. It's empty. Most of the time, when you're exploring the world of Elden Ring, you are running through vast, empty fields with a basically white noise happening in the background. I don't think the soundtrack for Elden Ring is as good as past Souls games. I think some tracks are really good, particularly the final boss soundtrack. I love the main theme of Elden Ring, okay? But I think most of the music in the game is underwhelming. It's not memorable. And I think the overworld is boring. I'm saying the overworld. It's really just the world, right? Because there's no loading screens, which is really cool, by the way. That's the strength of Elden Ring. There's no loading screens between any of the areas unless you're like fast traveling, right? But the world is empty. Like And the stuff that you do run into is, you know, kind of, in my mind, random mobs that I don't particularly enjoy fighting, and I don't see a reason to fight because you're not getting anything valuable out of fighting the mobs, right? And then you're also running into these copy-paste dungeons, man, over and over and over. And most of those dungeons, they're cool for the first, like, couple, right? But for the most part, you're not finding anything valuable. And this is the problem with taking the Dark Souls formula and doing a massive game like this, is that in the old Dark Souls games, most of the stuff that you find, I think you can actually use, right? I think most of the loot in Dark Souls is actually very usable. And even if it's not necessarily for your build or whatever, right? There's not so much of it that the good loot feels diluted. And this is one of the many problems I've found with Elden Ring. I think that eventually when you find, this is terrible, I'm skipping I should go back. I don't want to skip this because the audience needs to see what happens to Echo 419. They get shot down with banshees. And some people have complained about this, the huge gap in this ship here. Like, why would this huge starship have a random bridge joining the two halves? It just structurally just doesn't make any sense. I'm really hoping I get a checkpoint here and I don't die to banshees or falling to my death. So yeah, I think that's a huge problem with Elden Ring. I think it's quantity over quality in a series of games that has always been, except for Dark Souls 2, it has always been about quality over quantity. The vast majority of what you're doing in the Dark Souls games feels like it matters, okay? And when I'm playing Elden Ring, most of what I feel like I'm doing does not feel meaningful, right? I feel like most of the areas I can skip in Elden Ring and be perfectly fine. And I'm going to talk a little more about, you know, the specific way that I played Elden Ring. Because, I mean, I don't know about a lot of people here, but I grinded in some spots that made the game significantly easier. So I know that Ratjar is going to come out and call me out on that because, but I am going to get into a larger discussion about the balance of Elden Ring as well in the last, like, 2 minutes that I have while I'm playing Halo. But yes, I felt like most of the stuff, the actual, like, content of the Elden Ring game was completely skippable, and it didn't really make any huge difference in my mind of the overall, like, quality of my gaming experience. So, and a lot of people, like, if you love Elden Ring and you know, are totally immersed, right, in the world or whatever, I can understand why you would disagree with me on this. Because for me, I just did not ever get to that point where I was playing Elden Ring and I was like, oh man, this is like life-changing. I'm going to name drop a few games that did feel that way for me. And, you know, I'm probably going to get some shit for this. Whatever, it's fine. The Elder Scrolls games, particularly Skyrim, that overworld I thought was awesome. And if you go back and you play Skyrim, yes, it feels a little bit dated at this point, and there's some problem. There's tons of problems. It's a Bethesda game, right? There's tons of problems, but I am more willing to forgive a game of its problems if the strengths in my mind are outweighing those problems. And for me, Elden Ring, I just don't think that the strengths outweigh the weaknesses. I think most of the time when you're playing Elden Ring, you're doing stuff that's not really advancing your, and I mean, it's subjective, right? I feel like you're not advancing your objectives most of the time. You're clearing a lot of extra content that it just feels very diluted to me. and the balancing does not feel good. It doesn't feel like the old Dark Souls games where you're going through it in a more linear fashion. So you're hitting all of the bosses pretty much exactly when you're supposed to be hitting them, right? And it feels like a more polished experience because of that, right? Whereas Elden Ring, this is one of the downsides of having a huge open world. The player is going to go wherever they go. And, so you're going to run into areas that you're completely over leveled for. And you're also going to run into areas where you're really, really under leveled. And I've heard this argument well, if you run into something hard, you can go do the other stuff, right? And for me, I don't want to go do the other stuff because most of it I just didn't enjoy in Elden Ring. I think most of the bosses fall completely flat. They're not enjoyable. Like, there's tons of copy and pasting. And I really think that Dark Souls 2 caught tons of flack for stuff like that, and Elden Ring did not. I think it kind of got off the hook for a lot of that. So, and honestly, Shadow of the Erd Tree, I'm summarizing right now because I'm at an hour 20 and I've just finished Halo. But Shadow of the Erd Tree felt like more of the same to me, and I only played a few hours before I got bored, and I realized, like, okay, this is more of kind of the generic Elden Ring experience that I was getting. So, thank you for tuning in. Those are my hot takes about Elden Ring, First Descendant, Game Pass. We covered a lot of ground today. I feel like we've really grown together as a community. And I'll probably, I don't know, maybe I'll make more videos talking about this stuff in the future. But we finished Halo, and ultimately, that's what matters. To circle back, that is what matters. We finished Halo CE. Maybe we'll pick up another game stream. I've been kind of tired from work lately, so I haven't really felt like streaming. So I don't know. Maybe I'll try to squeeze as much value out of my last month of Game Pass before I probably cancel it. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see. That's the thing about these, creative endeavors. You can go as far as you want with them, right? And that's life in a way, right? You do what makes you happy. If you like Elden Ring, go play Elden Ring. If you want to grind to get all the ultimate characters in First Descendant, feel free to do that. It's a huge waste of life in my opinion. But I think we can all agree that the original Halo games are better than all these games. So, all right, thank you. With that, I'm going to leave you until the next time. Take it easy.